All right, so moving on to North America, we'll go through.
Most people care about.
I know, woo! We'll go through CLG versus FlyQuest first, because I do think the more interesting matchup is going to be between P1 and Dignitas. So CLG versus FlyQuest. These are two teams. Neither of them have had a consistent split. I think that FlyQuest did what most people thought they would, and they took off very quickly. And when mid-season happened and other teams are coming together and figuring stuff out, FlyQuest kind of fell a lot in terms of what they could accomplish against teams and rosters with maybe different and superior talent to what they have on that team. I think these are two teams that have kind of put their flag in the sand around having a team that communicates really well together. So the beginning of the split, FlyQuest, one of the reasons why they were so successful is it's an all English speaking roster. The only like quote unquote new addition was Moon. You have High kind of taking charge of the shot calling duties of that team, obviously, like memes aside, like he's very experienced, very strong decision maker, and the rest of the team follows him. So that worked out really well. Moon was playing very, very well. And CLG had the opposite track. They've had a very, very slow start. A lot of them commented on how the meta shift was very difficult for them because you know, they had to swap up their bot lane a lot and move Stixay off of the champions that he prefers to play, which are more like auto attack champions, like the Caitlyn. And the primary thing was that Aphromoo fell back from being their primary initiator, which obviously affected the team adversely. So I think CLG have picked it up. I picked them to win this matchup just because I do think that the meta has shifted in their favor to the point where I think they can put Stixay on those 80 carries that he really likes to play. I think that they are still very fond of sticking Darshan in a side lane, obviously, and splitting pressure with that. I think
Are you sure? Because I thought that they removed the top and bottom lane option in North America. I thought there was like they just started
CLG
playing on
is the one team that just doesn't. But
no,
FlyQuest
I swear,
does.
CLG.
They had a couple
this
games.
Bad.
Yeah, but yeah. FlyQuest. There was one game where they had both tier 1 turrets up, I swear, and they were just rushing down mid. I think it was against Cloud9. And
there
they
was
just
one against TSM, I remember, because I took a screenshot and put it on Twitter, and I was like, yes, you win the game without taking tier 1. Like, this is how you do it.
They disabled the side lanes in North America, and that's why FlyQuest will win. No, anyway, maybe you want to
MO, right? Because you have like the joke is that you make really decisive team fights around like these neutral objectives like Dragon and Baron, and you just surprise the enemy team like this. I feel like Fiddlesticks, you know, let's bring Fiddlesticks back and the surprise party skin. And this is exactly how Cloud9 how FlyQuest want to win, because they also will pick these weird picks, and Fiddles might be good at mid again, and so it's just High is constantly surprise partying Fiddles around Dragon. I
mean,
oh my God.
So give Fiddlesticks to Lemon or Moon, and we'll be all set. Moon has played some interesting.
No, High,
Fiddlesticks mid.
Mid fiddle. No, that's like the range has been improved. So let's put it in mid. Let's go. I mean, you think I'm joking? I'm kind of joking, not really though.
See, the thing is though, if they actually did it, I would not be shocked. I'd be like, oh, FlyQuest, okay.
No, this sounds like a thing that they would actually do. Yeah, okay, let's go. Do we have High solo queue account? Let's bring
pull that out.
Okay.
That's actually why CLG have said, so it's funny because most of CLG are like, this is great. I think we match up really well against them right now. And Afro is like, I hate prepping for FlyQuest. They play too many weird champions. High is a very decisive shot caller. Despite that, I'm giving the edge to CLG. Although it wouldn't completely shock me if FlyQuest won. I just think that they've kind of plateaued in terms of what they can accomplish, and I do think CLG can go a bit further, before they come up against TSM, and it will probably be kind of bad.
I mean, and FlyQuest, kind of to an extent, the way that they play, I think, will be effective in winning 1 or 2 games, maybe, but not a best of 5. So
all 5 games, 70 minutes each.
Oh gosh, you're so right. You're so right about that. It's actually okay. Moving on.
Phoenix won and Dignitas. So key points. What are Phoenix One doing with their roster? Because before the final weeks, I actually would have said that Phoenix One is one of, like, if not the best team in North America. I think, and I mean, to some extent, I still believe this, that their understanding of how to trade cross-map pressure, how to trade objectives is very good. And then they started experimenting with, so not only the Meteos and Inori situation, but they also started experimenting with their bot lane, which, I mean, I'm not sure what you thought of Shady, but I think Stunt is a way better option for them. I'm not sure why they decided to make that call.
Agree with you if he has Thresh. I'm not really convinced on the other picks he showed, but the Thresh was pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of either one of them, to be completely honest. I think they're in a position where they're either choosing they don't have good options. It's just bad. I mean, any analogy I make here is uncharitable, so it's not that the players themselves are bad, it's just that they're not experienced, and support is a role where you want a lot of experience on, which is why we're seeing all these weird support role swaps right now, right? Where it's just this guy doesn't know what to do, or when to roam mid, or how to set up vision behind Dragon, or how to set up vision on top without getting caught. Xpeke, do you want to play support? So that's why I think that it's a little unfortunate that they don't. An engage sense is something that you really have to train to, right? And that's a little bit tricky for rookie supports to pick up. So yeah, I'm not really sure why they have this. I mean, not.
I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I think my thing is they were doing okay with Stunt. I'm not. Obviously, Adrian left, so it's not like they swapped to Stunt because they were waffling over who they wanted to play support. But I think that, I mean, the positive is that they do still have Arrow in the bot lane. I'm also very curious to see what's going to happen with the jungle matchup, because P1 have famously been swapping kind of back. They pretty much settled on Meteos, but then have swapped a few more times towards the end of the split towards Inori. This is in no way a slam on Inori. I don't think he's a bad jungler, but I do think he's inexperienced, and I do think he takes a lot of risks, and those risks do not always pay off. And when they don't pay off, he doesn't necessarily know how to recoup those losses elsewhere, and that is actively a problem when he plays. Obviously, the flip side is that when those risks do pay off, it really snowballs them very early and very quickly. But you'll see him doing invades sometimes without the proper vision. You'll see him taking some risky turret dives. You'll see him taking some risky ganks. Whereas obviously Meteos, you know exactly what you're going to get Meteos. I think the other interesting thing is that Meteos has said that he'll play with the team for as long as he can, but that's still weirdly up in the air. So I guess I am very curious to see what comes of who they put in the jungle position against Dignitas, especially against a jungler like Chaser, who's kind of, a lot of people have made jokes about like Jin Chaser and the fact that he's gone back to having this strong early game and then doesn't really know how to translate those advantages well through the mid game, especially since Dig is one of these hybrid rosters that kind of has, you see the communication breakdown visibly when someone goes in and the rest of the team doesn't follow, or someone goes in and then the next person comes in slightly too late, or some days like slightly early or slightly late on the teleport. I picked P1 to take this regardless, just because I think even with the bot lane swaps, even with the jungle swaps, I think Zig has had a really strong season. I think they've actually relied on him a lot just to kind of be a strong enough presence in the top lane where they don't, not that they don't ever give him attention, but they don't have to worry about him. Arrow has been, in my opinion, I guess this will come out later, but the MVP of the split. And I mean, I still give this to P1.
You say strong early game when you talk about Chaser, but it's not. It's just not. Like, he just jumps on the top lane.
Yep.
Repeatedly, and that's not a strong early game.
Are you thinking of that one? Jungle. Are you thinking of that one game against TSM where he tries to dive Hanser like 3 times? I feel like that's the quintessential Chaser game.
It's like you say quintessential because it's like it's an exaggeration, but it's definitely symptomatic of how he thinks. It's like we need to get someday ahead, right? And so he'll just like kind of impale himself on the top lane, so to speak, repeatedly, and that's not what jungling is. Like, I think people look at jungling and they're like, do they gank a lot? Do they get involved in the lanes? But that's like, I think if you're just going to play like that, then Meteos is probably the best jungler of the 3 that we've discussed, because he understands like what side of the map to be on. Like, he's not necessarily like, the criticism of him in the reverse is maybe he doesn't get involved in lanes as much as he should, but he definitely thinks about where the enemy jungler is going to be and how to kind of make an exchange on the other side, how he can set up his lanes so that if they make a trade, can we get a trade somewhere else and things like this. So I think that that's like better jungling, is just understanding where the pressure is on the map as opposed to trying to like falsely create it. Or force it in one direction where it's not going to come out easily. But yeah, to that regard, I think it's going to be important to have a strong top lane matchup in this series, because both Zig and Sunday have been pretty key. I do think yeah. I mean, the problem is that I don't want to give it to P1, right? Because they have been kind of messy the past little bit, and I think that the support is a really big problem for them. Just not because there's a lack of connection between the jungle and the support itself and things like this that is really important to the way that team used to play. But yeah, you still have to give it to them anyway, just because I do think Dig still have so many problems. Like, they picked up a little bit, but I think it's just much.
The thing with them is that I think even though they've picked it up slightly, I still just think that if you look at the core of who we're presuming is going to play, so I'm operating under the assumption that Meteos will be the starting jungler. You have him, you have Ryu, and you have Arrow, and all 3 of them are very experienced players. Another thing that you notice with Meteos playing is that even though Arrow is still this like phenomenal standout carry from the bot lane, you see Ryu getting a lot more involved. You see Zig playing some more of these like, obviously like until I saw a few other games, actually I was talking to you about this the other night, we were watching the LPL, but I think Zig is a really good Kled player. I think his champion pool has been kind of interesting this split, and I think he is, again, just someone that they can rely on to be consistent and hold his own against someday, even though we do know that that's how Dig are going to play. And I guess if that's how these two teams are meeting, I think P1 still has, despite their problems, a lot more flexibility, because even with their improvements, Dig are still going to play through the top side, like pretty much guaranteed. That's what they want to do. They want to snowball someday so he can carry them.
All right, so that kind of wraps it up for us. To recap a little bit, we predicted the Freak of Freaks to win the first series in Korea. We said the KT still have a slightly favorable matchup against them if they move on. MVP might actually beat KT if it's the reverse result. Then in Europe, we decided on Splice over Misfits, and we went ahead and predicted H2K to kind of have a one-sided advantage against Fnatic. Finally, we went to North America, and we chose CLG over FlyQuest, with the exception of some very potent and delicious cheese, which, when I say cheese, I don't necessarily mean bad things. I just mean something that will only work once or twice. And then you have
Fiddlesticks mid. Let's see it. I want to see it.
Yeah. You have P1 to close out, winning against Dignitas. So that's going to be our playoff predictions for this week. Hopefully we can come back and talk about some semifinals and some other matchups there.
Thank you for coming to chat with me all the way from China, beyond the Great Firewall and all that. And thank you guys for checking out this video. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, just give us some feedback. I know we both want to improve, and check out our other stuff on Yahoo Esports.